Welcome back to Where's Wiseman. I'm Matt, this is Emily. We recently took an amazing trip through the Canadian Rockies. We'll link that series at the end of the video and in the description below.
Today we're going to talk about everything that you might need to know for traveling and camping through the Canadian Rockies, visiting Jasper and Banff National Parks, and driving the Icefields Parkway. We're going to start out with just talking about planning your trip in general and the approach that we take to planning this trip. Sorry in advance if we get a little nerdy and start talking about spreadsheets. So our approach when planning these trips and just figuring out how much time we're going to need is to generally make a list of all the places that we want to see first, look at those on a map, get a visual of where everything is, and then we'll go and figure out the distance and the time it's going to take to travel between each of those places. And then we'll figure out how long we might want to spend at each of those places. So for example, maybe we want to spend a half a day at the Athabasca Glacier, or we're going to take a tour that's going to take 3 hours, or this might just be a viewpoint along the side of the road that's going to be a 5-minute stop, or we want to take a hike that's going to take maybe 2 hours. So we'll combine all of that information, the distances, how long it's going to take us to drive to these places, the time we want to spend there, to give us a rough estimate of how long we're going to actually need to be on the trip. Hopefully that makes sense. And I do put in a spreadsheet because I'm a huge nerd.
As far as timing, you're going to want to give yourself at least a week to explore Banff and Jasper National Parks. There is so much to see, so much to do. 1 week you're barely scratching the surface, but you can at least see the best things there are to see. The first resource we recommend using is the Parks Canada website. All sorts of great information on fees, campground reservations, things to see and do, timing of things, when they open and close for the season.
Yeah, that's a great one-stop shop resource. All the information you need is going to be on Parks Canada.
Also, if you're going to be crossing the border from the US, make sure to check the Government of Canada's website for any updates or restrictions, and we'll cover more of that later. You can visit the Canadian Rockies any time of the year. The summer is going to be busy, but also beautiful, and you'll have all the lakes thawed. If you go a little earlier, some of the lakes might still be frozen, and not all the services like shuttles will be running. The Moraine Lake Shuttle and the Lake Louise Gondola all start in June. In the winter, you can enjoy skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, sleigh rides, ice skating, dog sledding, and sightseeing tours without too many crowds. You can also camp in select campgrounds. However, be prepared for winter driving conditions. Remember, the Icefields Parkway requires snow tires from November 1st to April 1st, and there are no services along the parkway in the winter, so plan accordingly.
Crossing the border from the US into Canada is pretty straightforward. You'll need your passport and then just be prepared to answer some questions from the border agent. Some of the obvious questions and the things that they asked us on our trip are, where are you coming from? Where are you going? How long are you going to be there? And then they may or may not ask you some questions about things that you're bringing along with you.
What's the purpose of your trip today?
Vacation.
All right, where are you going?
We're hitting Kimberley, Banff, Jasper, Icefields.
So all over camping?
Yeah,
And how long are you going to be staying for?
a week.
Depending on where you're going to be crossing, you may or may not get asked some questions about firearms. We crossed over the border from Idaho into British Columbia, and we did get some questions from the border agents about firearms, which that's not something that we're used to when we cross over the border in Washington, so that might just be an Idaho thing, not sure. Some of the questions that they asked us were, did we own a gun? Did we bring one with us? Had one ever been in our vehicle? So be prepared for that. You can, I believe, bring firearms into Canada, but there's a lot of restrictions around it. So again, check that Government of Canada website about border crossings and what you can and can't bring. There's a ton of information on there regarding pets and food and meats, vegetables, just all kinds of things, and the quantities that you might be limited to if you are going to bring them over. So definitely check out that resource before you plan any border crossings. One final tip on border crossings: if you don't already have the DOT or Department of Transportation app on your phone for the state that you're crossing over into or from, if you're coming from the US, that might be something you would want to download. In Washington, there are a number of border crossings up into Canada, And on our DOT app, we can see wait times at each of those crossings, and that might help determine where you want to cross over if you're in a state that does have multiple crossings available or your route is a little more flexible. Have that app on your phone and it might help you plan accordingly and maybe save yourself some time waiting to cross the border.
And one tip there, if you can avoid the I-5 crossing, if you're in Washington, definitely do that.
Yeah, don't go through the Peace Arch.
So now let's talk about some of the must-see sites. Banff National Park is a must visit, of course. Highlights include Lake Louise, Moraine Lake, Bow Lake, and the Banff Gondola. For Moraine Lake and Lake Louise, we highly recommend taking the Parks Canada shuttle to avoid parking hassles. The shuttle runs from June to October and does require reservations. In the town of Banff, check out the Bow Valley Parkway, Banff Hot Springs, Bow Falls, Cave and Basin National Historic Site, and of course the downtown area, which is very unique and beautiful. The views of the mountains from Main Street, and some really good breweries as well. Rome Public Transit is also a great way to get around Banff, with buses taking you to key destinations like Lake Louise.
So we camped at 2 Jack Lakeside, I think was our campground just outside of Banff, and we could see those buses running past the campgrounds. And so if you're at 2 Jack Lakeside or just 2 Jack Main, I think is what it's called, check that public transport website, because you will likely be able to just take a shuttle from the campsite into downtown Banff. You don't have to worry about parking your car.
Or if you're visiting those delicious breweries, worrying about your limits and then driving after.
In Jasper, don't miss the Athabasca Glacier, Columbia Icefields Skywalk, and the beautiful falls like Athabasca and Sunwapta. There are also amazing trails like Valley of the Five Lakes and Malign Canyon. And don't forget to visit Malign Lake and Spirit Island. Jasper Skytram Gondola offers fantastic views, and the town of Jasper itself is a great place to explore with lots of shops and restaurants.
Next, we'll discuss camping, and there's a ton of camping in Banff and Jasper National Parks. Just make sure to be prepared to get online and get your reservations set as soon as they open.
I think it's like January for one of those and February for the other.
Yeah, just if you're gonna plan this trip for next year, start looking it up now.
Yes.
And put reminders for a few days before. We got online, I believe at 6 a.m. and as soon as I got put in the queue, I was about 20,000th in line. We did, of course, get spots. We didn't get the ideal spot or the spot we wanted, but they all worked out. All the campgrounds are beautiful, but we'll go more into the details. One nice thing, if you miss a reservation or something doesn't work out, there are first come, first serve campgrounds, and some campgrounds, a portion are first come, first serve. Again, just make sure to look that up. And also, all the campgrounds open at different times throughout the spring and summer. So make sure to check those schedules out. There are also, as we mentioned, a couple open in the winter, which we may have to try with our Teardrop. Sounds pretty amazing.
And know that if you're gonna go in June or July, those are the busiest times, and you're gonna be in line with, again, thousands of other people trying to get those same campsites. So it's just gonna be busier during those times of year.
If it's before fire restrictions, the park campgrounds up there are amazing. They provide firewood for you, and I believe you're required to pay for the firewood permit when you make the reservations, and it's about $10, which when you think about it, for unlimited firewood is a hell of a deal.
Yeah, that's really cheap.
Yeah. The park rangers up there come around and drop off loads of firewood throughout every day, and you just walk over. We saw a lot of people with wagons, which is really smart. Or we just took our Jeep over, filled the backpack, threw some firewood in the trunk, and brought it back to our campsite.
If you're visiting in July or August, check that Parks Canada website because a burn ban may or may not be in effect for the parks. And plan accordingly, bring a gas fire pit. You're not gonna be able to have fires in the campground. Our hearts go out to Jasper, the folks that live in the town there, and just the park itself. Huge wildfires going on this summer. So we got very lucky when we visited in May. We didn't have to worry about wildfires or burn bans, but something else to take into consideration when you're planning your trip and the time of year that you're gonna go. You may or may not have a burn ban or be dealing with a lot of smoke in the air from any wildfires.
The campgrounds and the parks also have amazing facilities, showers which are included in your camping fee. And overall, we thought that the parks do an excellent job. Everywhere we stayed, the facilities were clean, they worked. You didn't have to pay anything extra to use showers. Some of them even had dishwashing stations, so you don't have to worry about leaving food, odors around your camp, because the bears are thick up there. And we actually saw, what, 4 this last trip? Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Only 4.
Only 4.
Again, something to keep in mind when you're at the campgrounds, just be very aware that there are bears and other wild animals roaming around. And so you want to make sure you're cleaning all of your dishes after you cook. You don't want to leave any of those scents around. You want to keep your food in a bear box if they have them provided, or in some sort of hard-sided container in the trunk of your car or whatever, just to minimize any odors from your food for the bears.
Last thing, and very important, a national park pass is required to camp in any of the campgrounds. And if you're doing a longer trip, it may actually make more sense to get their annual Discovery Pass.
All of that information and pricing, again, is on the Parks Canada website. And even if you're just gonna be driving through, but you wanna stop in the town of Banff, or at, just stop at Lake Louise, but you aren't planning to camp, you still need to have a park pass, and they wanna see that displayed in the front windshield. I think on the passenger side is where they want you to kind of tape that up. So even if you aren't camping, you're passing through, you're just gonna maybe stop at a couple sites, they will come around and check cars, and so you do have to buy a pass, a day pass probably in that situation. So just know that and kind of price that out accordingly depending on what you're planning to do while you're in the parks. A couple final thoughts. When you're going to drive the Icefields Parkway between Banff and Jasper, there's only one gas station, and that is at Saskatchewan Crossing, and it's about 2 hours or an hour and a half from either direction. So be prepared and be aware of how you are with your fuel situation. And also there is 0 cell service along the whole Icefields Parkway. So yes, in Banff and yes, in Jasper, but if you are anywhere along the parkway, expect to have 0 cell service. So again, plan accordingly and just know about that. Be prepared to see a lot of rental motorhomes. They're all over the place up there. Canada or Canadian Dream, I'm not exactly sure. There's a couple of different brands that you might see. And if that's something that you're interested in, definitely check that out. We haven't done a lot of research on that, but I would imagine the major rental sites are probably in maybe Edmonton or Calgary. Those are the 2 largest cities closest to the parks there. So if you want to rent a motorhome, look into that. But if you're going to camp and you're bringing your own rig, just be prepared. You might be driving behind a lot of slow motorhomes along the Icefields Parkway.
Thanks for watching. We hope you got some value out of this video. We highly recommend this trip. Put it on your bucket list.
Yeah, if you have any questions that we didn't answer during this video, please drop them in the comments below. We'll do our best to respond. And if you haven't seen any of our videos from our road trip, we will link those in the description down below and probably put them right at the end of this video.
And don't forget to subscribe to follow more of our camping and travel adventures. And if you want to watch more, we'll leave some playlists down in the description.